What if a single act of teenage graffiti triggered a war that tore a nation apart, birthed ISIS, and dragged the world's most powerful armies into battle? This is not fiction. This is Syria. March 2011. In the southern city of Daraa, a few boys spray-painted on a wall, "It's your turn, doctor." A jab at President Bashar al-Assad. But their prank became the spark for a nightmare. Police arrested the children, tortured them. Their families protested. Security forces fired live bullets into the crowd. Blood stained the streets. The chants grew louder. Assad, once seen as a mild-mannered doctor turned leader, now showed his iron fist. Tanks rolled into Daraa. Soldiers opened fire. Protesters shouted for freedom. The illusion of reform was gone. The violence didn't silence the people, it inflamed them. From Homs to Damascus, crowds grew. What started as protests spread into a national uprising. Syria was at a breaking point. Defectors from Assad's military fled with their weapons. Farmers, mechanics, and students joined them. They called themselves the Free Syrian Army. A rebellion had taken shape. Homs, Aleppo, Damascus suburbs. Neighborhoods became battlegrounds. Tanks shelled apartment blocks. Mortars rained down. Entire families huddled in basements as buildings crumbled above them. The international community condemned Assad, but stopped short of intervention. To many Syrians, it felt like they had been abandoned to their fate. Assad wasn't alone. Iran sent weapons, money, and troops. Hezbollah fighters from Lebanon crossed the border. The war was no longer just Syria's, it was becoming regional. In the chaos, another force emerged. ISIS. Hardened fighters, fresh from Iraq, swept into Syria. They seized towns, villages, oil fields. Their black flag struck terror wherever they appeared. Raqqa became ISIS's capital. They declared a caliphate. Executions, crucifixions, and propaganda videos horrified the world. Syria wasn't just a civil war anymore, it was the stage for global jihad. The US launched airstrikes against ISIS. Coalition forces joined. Kurdish militias became America's unlikely allies. Syria was now a battlefield where everyone was fighting, but not always the same enemy. Meanwhile, Aleppo, Syria's largest city, was split in two. Rebels in the east. Assad in the west. For years, the city endured relentless bombardment. It became a symbol of Syria's agony. Doctors risked everything to save lives in makeshift hospitals underground. But even hospitals became targets. Barrel bombs and airstrikes turned places of healing into rubble. 2013, the suburbs of Damascus, eastern Ghouta, woke to horror. Civilians gasping, children foaming at the mouth. Sarin gas filled the air. Hundreds died in minutes. The world was stunned. President Obama had warned Assad not to cross the red line of chemical weapons. But when Assad did, US strikes never came. For many Syrians, it was the moment hope collapsed. 2015, Russian jets roared into Syrian skies. Precision bombs and missiles turned the tide. Assad, once cornered, now pushed forward with brutal new strength. By 2016, Aleppo was surrounded. The rebels were trapped. Supplies cut. Bombs fell day and night. Civilians live-streamed their last messages to the world. And then, silence. Aleppo had fallen. By now, millions fled. Parents carried children across deserts, across seas, into crowded refugee camps. The Syrian war had sparked the greatest refugee crisis since World War II. Rubber boats capsized in the Mediterranean. Families drowned. The image of a little boy, Alan Kurdi, lying lifeless on a Turkish beach shocked the globe. But the tide of refugees never stopped. Turkey sent its army across the border. Its target? Not Assad, but Kurdish groups it feared would create a breakaway state. Another front opened in an already fractured war. Meanwhile, Kurdish fighters stood firm against ISIS. With US backing, they pushed the jihadists back, village by village. Their resilience became legendary. 2017, after brutal street fighting, Raqqa fell. The ISIS capital was gone. The Caliphate crumbled. But its ideology still lingered in the shadows. With Russia and Iran backing him, Assad regained territory. City after city fell back under his control. But his rule came at a terrible cost. Streets turned into graveyards. By 2018, Idlib was the rebels' last major holdout. 3 million civilians were trapped inside. Every day, bombs rained down. Every day, families asked, "Will we be next?" Doma, 2018. Once again, civilians suffocated as chemical weapons struck. The images of children gasping for air haunted the world. The US, UK, and France launched strikes, but Assad remained. By now, Syria was no longer one war. It was dozens. Rebels versus Assad. Kurds versus Turkey. ISIS versus everyone. Russia versus the West. Iran versus Israel. All colliding on Syrian soil. In 2019, US troops began withdrawing from parts of Syria. Kurdish allies felt abandoned. Turkey seized the opportunity, invading deeper into the north. March 2019. The last ISIS stronghold, Baghouz, fell. A tattered black flag was pulled down. The Caliphate was officially defeated. But the war was far from over. Assad now controlled most of Syria. But victory came at a price: half his country displaced, entire cities in ruins, his regime accused of war crimes that shocked the conscience of the world. Survivors dug through ruins to rebuild. Children went to school in bombed-out classrooms. Families cooked meals over fires in the shells of their homes. Daily life became survival. Millions of Syrian children grew up knowing only war. No classrooms, no stability, just trauma. A generation scarred before it even had a chance to live. Aid groups struggled to deliver food, medicine, and water. Convoys were bombed. Hospitals lacked supplies. For many, starvation and disease became just as deadly as bombs. The war slowed, but never stopped. Small clashes continued. Airstrikes still hit Idlib. Militias still fought in the deserts. For Syrians, peace was only a word. Russia now held bases on Syrian soil. Its navy docked at Tartus. Its jets patrolled the skies. Syria wasn't just Assad's survival, it was Moscow's triumph. Iranian militias dug in across Syria, linking Tehran to Lebanon. Israel, alarmed, launched airstrikes on Iranian positions. Syria became the heart of a looming regional storm. As the years passed, media attention faded. But the suffering didn't. Refugees languished in camps. Civilians lived under rubble. The world moved on, but Syrians couldn't. What began as a protest for dignity had spiraled into a decade of devastation. The same chance that once toppled dictators elsewhere had, in Syria, brought only ruin. Was Syria destroyed by Assad's cruelty? By the world's indifference? By the clash of foreign powers? Or was it all of these, woven into one catastrophe? And today, Syria remains scarred. A broken nation, a displaced people, a war still echoing. What began with graffiti on a wall became one of the bloodiest tragedies of our century. And its story is not yet finished.